Grace and peace to you today. We're continuing to work through one of the readings for the upcoming Sundays as our Faith Formation video, taking a look at that and giving some thoughts of our own on that, and then certainly inviting you to comment to us either on the Facebook post or reach out to us yourself and let us know what you think. So for this Sunday, we're looking at James 3:13 through 4:3. And also including verses 7 through 8a as well. So I'll read that and then give you some thoughts on it. Who is wise and understanding among you? Show by your good life that your works are done with gentleness born of wisdom. But if you have bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not be boastful and false to the truth. Such wisdom does not come from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, devilish. For where there is envy and selfishness and selfish ambition, there will also be disorder and wickedness of every kind. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without a trace of partiality or hypocrisy. And a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace for those who make peace. Those conflicts and disputes among you, where do they come from? Do they not come from your cravings that are at war within you? You want something and do not have it, so you commit murder. And you covet something and cannot obtain it, so you engage in disputes and conflicts. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly in order to spend what you get on your pleasures. Submit yourselves therefore to God. Resist the devil and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. This is the end of our reading. There are two places that really stuck out to me when I was reading this excerpt from James's letter. The first is what James says about wisdom. He seems to say that wisdom is not something that someone simply has, but something that someone can do, that can be observed, particularly in the good works that someone does for others. So a wise person is someone who cares for others. I made this mental leap from thinking about wisdom to thinking about how we define success, thinking a wise person would be a successful person, which might have some flaws in that jump, but thinking that we define success much differently than James would. With little exception these days, we associate success with status, having a good job or social standing, having a bank account where you don't live check to check, or having a family that looks good in social media pictures. James seems to think success would look more like a life that is structured and patterned around living and caring for others. That is a huge shift in how we think about success, about what we are working for in our lives. That doesn't mean that we can't have nice things or that we can't work for any sort of stability or security in our own lives. If we are constantly struggling to get by, then we probably aren't in a place to sustainably care for others. We may be able to show up in a moment, which is great, but doing so regularly is hard if our own lives are chaotic. So some self-care is probably needed in order to be able to show up and care for others well. But the point, the end for which we work, the measure of success is not how good our lives look, but how well we can care for others. That doesn't tend to be the way we think about success these days, but it seems like if we are to define our lives by Christ and not the world, we should work to shift our ideas of success more to this. James ends this section with the verse that wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without a trace of partiality or hypocrisy. Our world stands in need of this kind of wisdom, and I pray we look to people who produce this kind of wisdom more. The second thing that stood out to me was the line that said, those conflicts and disputes among you, where do they come from? Do they not come from your cravings that are at war within you? James is naming some of the birthplaces of sin within ourselves, and I appreciate the image of cravings at war within us as he does. Because sometimes sin or anger or hatred or abuse of others is this evil unto itself. But quite frequently, it comes from some hole within ourselves that comes out in destructive ways. We hoard money and possessions because of a fear that they will run out and we won't have enough. We lie about who we are to others because of a fear that if they really knew us, they wouldn't love us. We step on others to get ahead because of a fear that maybe we don't deserve what we get, or that they will actually be better than us and someone's going to find out. We strive for status and respect in what we do because of a fear that we have that people will see that we don't really think we're good enough or worthy enough. So much of what comes out sideways and hurtful towards others, or even ourselves, is not formed from a place of desiring harm for others, but from a place of fear, of not hearing God's voice telling us that we are loved and worthy even in our brokenness, and that God has provided an abundance for God's creation if we will live well together, live for one another, as James tells us wisdom looks like. Those are my 2 cents for the day on this particular text. So feel free to reach out to me if something in here sticks for you, or feel free to comment on the Facebook post and keep the conversation going. God's peace.